Hey you guys, welcome back to Frankenstein. This is chapter 11, which is really an exciting chapter. First of all, we have the third narrator of the book. This is the creature. It's his turn to tell the story of what's been happening for the almost 2 years of time after Victor abandoned him right upon his creation. And then Victor had fallen into the madness and he was being taken care of by Henry. And then after he recovered, he was kind of attending school, the language classes, studying the Oriental languages with Henry while he was kind of recovering. Then they received the letters. He receives the letters from Elizabeth saying, hey, everything is going great. And then when he's planning on coming home, he gets the letter from his dad that says William has been murdered. And so he had gone home. Dealt with the family trauma, the fact that Justine had been accused of the crime. While he was on his way there, he sees the creature in the woods. And after Justine is accused of the crime and executed for it, he goes off into nature. This is the romanticism. It's like, let me cleanse my aura. Let me get back to nature. Let me try to find the goodness in life. And here he runs into the creature, where the creature is now going to tell a story. So anyway, sorry that took so long, but chapter 11, the creature starts. So he begins with, it is with considerable difficulty that I remember the original era of my being, like how I first came to be. I don't really understand how it is. And remember, when you think about the themes in Frankenstein, the childbirth theme is one that this is it. Like he doesn't know where he came from. He's an adult who comes to life. So it's different than a little bitty baby who doesn't really understand anything and physically can't move. This is the creature who is gigantic. He's 8 feet tall. He's a big giant man. He can move around. He is coordinated enough to walk, but he doesn't understand. So think about childbirth and how that would affect someone when they don't understand anything. So he says, a strange multiplicity of sensations seized me, and I saw, felt, heard, and smelt at the same time. Now he's able to articulate it, but as a new creature, he is just like overwhelmed with sensations. And it was, he says, a long time before I learned to distinguish between the operations of my various senses to be able to control what is it that when you're hearing things or you're seeing things, or if you feel a sensation of hunger, what do you do about that? So he goes out wandering. Remember, Victor had turned away from him, had abandoned him. And so he's like, well, I don't know what to do, where to go. So he leaves. And he says, I could wander on at liberty with no obstacles, which I could not either surmount or avoid. He kind of has that superhuman strength going on. So he can avoid things. He can climb over them. He can avoid them. He can swim. He's having no trouble with nature. The trouble comes in other ways. He says, I was tormented by hunger and thirst. This roused me from my nearly dormant state. So when he gets tired, he sits down to rest. He eats berries, which he finds hanging on the trees or lying on the ground. I slaked my thirst at the brook. And then he says, it was dark when I awoke. I felt cold also and half frightened. Then he says, there's this gentle light stole over the heavens. He's talking about the moon. And he loves that. He says, I gazed on it with a kind of wonder. It moves slowly, but it enlightened my path. So he's wandering at night, okay, avoiding people. He goes out in search of berries. He happens upon a cloak. So lucky for him, he says, under one of the trees, I found a huge cloak. Now you might envision maybe it's a picnic blanket that somebody left behind. They go out for a picnic and then they leave it behind. A cloak could be, just it's fabric. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody's coat that got left behind. Although it could be, we don't know. And so then he is trying to basically just keep himself alive for the next couple paragraphs. Several changes of day and night happen. He says, sometimes I wished to express my sensations in my own mode. But the uncouth and inarticulate sounds which broke from me frightened me into silence again. When he makes sounds with his voice, when he tries to say things, when he tries to communicate, the noise that he makes scares him. The moon had disappeared. My sensations had become distinct. He's learning a little bit more about managing all of his senses. And then he comes across, one day when I was oppressed by cold, I found a fire which had been left by some wandering beggars. So if you, I think everybody has seen in winter season when homeless people are out on the side of the freeway and there will be a fire. Okay, he has come upon a fire that was left behind by beggars, and he's overcome with delight at the warmth. So he's just like a baby learning about heat and warmth. So he says, in my joy I thrust my hand into the live embers. He sticks his hand into the fire. It's like, oh, it feels so good. I just want it to be closer. Oh, no, I don't want to be that close. He's learning. He's learning by doing. It's the same thing when you have children. The baby starts crawling towards the fireplace. No, hot, hot, hot. Don't touch, danger, hot. So we use language to teach. However, no one is there to teach him about it. So he's learning on his own. Oh, it feels good. Oh, too close, doesn't feel good anymore. But remember that he kind of has these powers of healing. So Mary Shelley doesn't go into any more detail about the burn, the after effects of the burn, blistering, how he gets over it. He just says, oh, I quickly drew my hand out with a cry of pain. Then he doesn't talk about it anymore. And then he says, for the next paragraph, he's learning about fire. Wet wood doesn't burn, dry wood does. How to dry the wood so that it will burn. How to keep the fire going. It's the first thing you should check on in the morning when you have a few embers left that you can put the dry wood on, and it will start the fire up again. He also learns about covering it at night, and then the oxygen needed to blow it up in the morning. So adding oxygen, and that helps the fire burn. So then it gets the next paragraph. It was morning when I awoke. My first care was to visit the fire. And then he says, okay, night came again. I found with pleasure that the fire gave light as well as heat. And the discovery of this element was useful to me in my food. For I found some of the offals that the travelers had left had been roasted and tasted much more savory than the berries I gathered from the trees. Offal is, it's like the internal organs. So when you go to the store and you get meat in a package, it has been butchered and taken care of, and the offal, in the old days, everybody used to eat every part of the animal. Nowadays, we just eat the muscular tissue for the most part. Some people have, tongue, or when you have a turkey, some people roast the giblets and make gravy at Thanksgiving. So the offal, O-F-F-A-L, that is the internal organs, like the stomach and the lungs and the brain and the things that have maybe lost importance in popular modern culture. But he's happy, the creature is happy to have them, and when they're roasted, they taste delicious. And he's like, oh gosh, I put the berries in the fire, and those don't really turn out too good, but I put this stuff in, and boy, was it delicious. So anyway, that's pretty interesting. Food became scarce. He often spent his whole day searching in vain. He couldn't find anything. Sometimes he finds a few nuts. And then he says, I would roast those, and those would be good. But then he goes on, it's about 7 a.m. I longed to obtain food and shelter. I perceived a small hut. Now, back in the day, shepherds would create a little something out with the animals. They're away from home, so they build up a little shelter. Like in camping, okay? So you're using natural materials to build a little hut. And he goes in, and the man is in the hut, and he is sitting near a fire over which he's preparing his breakfast. Now, he's probably roasting a little piece of meat. He turns on hearing a noise, and perceiving me, he looks up, shrieked loudly, and quitting the hut, that means he ran out of the hut, ran across the fields, this is actually funny, with a speed of which his debilitated form hardly appeared capable. He seems like a little old man who is hardly able to get around, kind of limping and gimping. And he sees the creature, he runs, he bolts, he looks like a track star. He's like, oh my God, running away. So the creature is taking this all in. Okay, people see me, and they run. His appearance, different from any I had ever seen, and his flight somewhat surprised me. But I was enchanted by the appearance of the hut. He says, I can stay warm and dry here. I can eat the food that he left behind. So he's taking care of himself. Oh, and then the remnants of the shepherd's breakfast were actually bread, cheese, milk, and wine. He says, but the latter I did not like. He didn't like the wine. He lays down some straw and falls asleep. Then, let me get to this next part. He goes to the next, oh, by the way, I determined to recommence my travels, and depositing the remains of the peasant's breakfast in a wallet I found. That's not a wallet like where you keep your money in a billfold wallet. A wallet is simply a means of holding onto something, a little pouch, like a small purse made of leather. Back in the day, they didn't have like artificial substances and fake leathers. So it's just a piece of leather. It's they don't have Ziploc baggies. So he brings his food with him, and he arrives at a village after several hours. Now, this is an important thing because he hasn't really come in contact with too many people, just this shepherd who screamed and ran away. So he says, I see this village, and the huts, the homes, are all very neat and pretty, and he likes to look at them. People would put vegetables, milk, cheese, a pie in the windowsill to cool, it's just what people did. On the windowsill, it wasn't like ours might be really tippy with one little tiny piece of wood that has like domed, but they used to have like a flat piece of wood that it was like a shelf, and so people would put the food there. Plus, if you're coming from outside and you want to put it in the kitchen without bringing your muddy boots in, you just put it on the windowsill and you can go around into the house later. So anyhow, all these houses have all this food sitting on the windowsills, and he is obviously hungry. So he is maybe taking some things, but he says, I had hardly placed one of the best I had entered. I hardly had placed my foot within the door before, listen to the reaction, the children shriek, and one of the women fainted. The whole village was roused. Who are we being attacked by? There's a creature. So everybody comes. Some attacked him, some fled, and he was bruised by the stones and the kinds of missile weapons. People are throwing things at him. He escaped to the open country and fearfully took refuge in a low hovel. Now, this place is important. He runs and gets away from the town and away from the people, and he comes upon a house, a cottage, a small home that's away from everybody. Next to this little cottage is what he says, a low hovel, quite bare. It's just a little, think of like a shack that is leaning against a home. It says it joined a cottage. That means it's on the outside of the cottage. It probably has its own little separate roof, but it has its own little door, like a storage shed, okay? And so he goes in there. He says, after my late dearly bought experience, I dared not enter the cottage. He doesn't want to go in and see the people anymore. But he says, my place of refuge was constructed of wood, but so low that I couldn't hardly sit upright in it. So it's not like 8 feet tall, it's short. No wood is on the floor, it's dirt, okay? But it was dry, so it's a dry place, and it has a roof over his head. The wind entered it by innumerable chinks, but he fills these and he is able to rest, lay down happy to have found shelter. So in the morning, he discovers that there is a little family who is there. It's a young girl, a young boy, and an old man. And he watches them. Now, this is part of that Gothic element of literature where someone is watching. Okay, that's what makes this a Gothic story. He describes in the next few paragraphs the dwelling, how he's watching, what they eat, and on examining their countenance, he says a couple of times, he sees a despondence, a sadness in their faces. So he notices that this poor little family is very unhappy. And remember, he doesn't have the words to say it, so he's describing how they behave. Then he notices that in his little shack, there is a crack. In one of these was a small and almost imperceptible chink through which the eye could just penetrate. He's watching with one eye into the home. His shack is attached to the cottage wall, and he can look through the cottage wall to see the family and observe them while they are living. So they sit by the fire, they play music, they talk, and it's important to notice that he says, it was a lovely sight, even to me, poor wretch, who had never beheld aught beautiful before. He says, the silver hair and benevolent countenance of the aged cottager won my reverence, while the gentle manners of the girl enticed my love. Be innocent with your thoughts here. He doesn't know what his feelings are, but he sees a beautiful, loving relationship. This old man, like your grandparents, okay, and the love of the grandparent to the grandchild, like you just want to hug him. And so he's watching. He says, I perceived, the boy played a sweet mournful air, which I perceived drew tears from the eyes of his amiable companion, of which the old man took no notice. This is like regular happenings until she sobbed audibly, like it's louder. And then he says, this is really important at the end of that paragraph, I felt sensations of a peculiar and overpowering nature. They were a mixture of pain and pleasure. This is a fantastic description by Mary Shelley, such as I had never before experienced. Think about emotions. What would he be feeling as he's seeing how these people are acting and treating each other? He has only been rejected. People have run from him. They have thrown things at him. So he doesn't know how to feel. He's learning by watching how to feel and how to care for one another. So it's a really important scene. And he talks about it in comparison to the physical feelings he's had. I had never before experienced either from hunger or cold, warmth or food. And I withdrew from the window, unable to bear these emotions. So it's like, what do you do with love? What do you do with longing? What do you do with even like a jealousy? Oh, I wish I could have that. So, the rest of the chapter, basically, the family goes into the garden. They do their chores. The old man is pensive. Nothing could exceed in beauty the contrast between these excellent creatures. He talks about night quickly shutting in, but to my extreme wonder, I found that they had a means of prolonging light by the use of tapers, candles, tall candles, and was delighted to find that the setting of the sun did not put an end to the pleasure I experienced in watching my human neighbors. He loves watching them. So remember, this is all positive. He has only experienced negative out in the world, and now he's experiencing something beautiful where he can see how a family should truly treat each other and love. So that pretty much ends up the chapter, and then he goes to bed. So anyway, it's a great first introduction about what the creature had been doing in the 2 years where Victor had abandoned him and how he has learned to deal with people. Anyway, hope you guys are enjoying these. Click subscribe. All my students, click subscribe, and then come back for more. So we'll be back on the next one. Bye-bye.